Hi everybody, it's Peter here, and this is the second video in the online sharpening course by KnifePlanet. So in this video, I'm just going to do some very basic sharpening to show you how simple it is to sharpen a knife. All you need is some patience, and establishing technique. You need to build some muscle memory, and you need to do that by just doing this. So I'm going to show you how simple it can be. I'm going to use 3 water stones, coarse, a medium, and fine. If you only have 1 water stone, 1000 grit will do the job too. So there's an article that accompanies this that's very important that you read that. John Broida helped me out with a lot of it. I think it's a really good article, gives a lot of information, and describes in detail what I'm going to try to illustrate here. So there's a few things you need to know. I'm going to sharpen a Japanese knife, a handmade knife, and it's very hard. It's about 61 to 63, so it's nice and hard. I'm going to choose an angle of about 10 degrees because it's hard, and the article describes why I can do this. And I'm going to bring side A and side B of the knife together as precisely as humanly possible at the apex of this, what is now a very dull knife. So this knife is pretty dull. There's no edge on it. So I'm going to show you how simple it can be. So you just have to do it. You just have to get out there and try. You're not going to ruin your knife. Let's say angles. There's different methods to use to define what an angle is. You need to know that all knives are sharp between 10 and 20 degrees. So the steel that's used to make your knife is what should influence your sharpening angle decision. So since this knife is pretty hard, I'm going to sharpen at about 10 degrees. Whether it's 11 degrees or 10.8 degrees, I don't know. It's my sharpening angle, and my goal is to keep it at my sharpening angle consistent as I do the entire knife on both sides of the knife. That's my goal. That's what my muscle memory will allow me to do and allow you to do over time. So now, this is what a 10 degree, you can get these nifty little angle guides now that show you exactly what a 10 degree angle looks like. You can also use the angle meter that's in your iPhone and in the Compass app. So what you do to find to identify your angle, you can just lay the knife on the stone, then raise it up a little bit with your fingers pressed down by the primary edge until you feel this edge biting into the stone, and there you go. That's the angle. Remember, you can choose whatever angle you want, but you should choose an angle that's applicable and most conducive to edge retention of the particular knife you're using. So the other thing I'm going to show you about is the Sharpie trick. I'm sure you've all heard of the Sharpie trick. So we take the Sharpie, and then one of the cool things that John told me was that I used to just paint the very edge of the knife with a Sharpie, and now I paint I go up a little further now, because any movement, any marks on the Sharpie where they shouldn't be will reveal sharpening mistakes I've made. So before I do that, flat, I've drawn some lines on this water stone because I'm going to use a diamond plate. This is an Atoma 140 plate to keep this stone flat. I believe in keeping water stones very flat. I don't care what other people think about not that requirement not to do so. I keep the edges nice and smooth too. Keeping my stones flat the way they came refreshes the surface of the stone. It removes anything that was embedded in there during the process. It looks better. It promotes bevel consistency. I mean, your option is something like this. Do you really want to sharpen a knife on something like that? No, I don't. So here we go. Let's get to it. So the Sharpie mark that I put on here is to help me stay on target of my as I sharpen. I want to sharpen the edge, and that's slightly up the bevel here, a little tiny bit. I just want to do this edge. Okay, the knife does not have to be thinned, and we'll get into that a little later in other videos. But I'm just going to sharpen it now on this, using this Sharpie as a tool to help me align my edge. So what you do, you just, using a finer stone, I wouldn't use this coarse stone, you just lightly go over the stone at the angle that you think it's at, and you're trying to see if the Sharpie is removed. Since I didn't hit it there, I'm going to adjust my angle a bit to make sure I'm on target. So it's starting to go now, so I know I'm good. I'm good to go. I'm happy with this angle. I could check. It could be a couple pennies that I have in here. It could be a wine cork that you've cut to a size to use as a template, but it's only a guide. Once you start freehand sharpening, you're on your own. So I'm going to show you how easy it is to go from point D, dull, to point S, sharp, just using these beautiful Japanese waterstones. So again, this is a coarse waterstone. My goal is to raise a burr on both sides of the knife from heel to tip, tip to heel, consistently in size, and the abrasive powers of these stones will do it. Here we go. At the tip area, I'm going to raise my elbow a little bit, and I'm going to raise the angle a little bit. If I were to sharpen the tip at the same angle and amount of pressure as I did the heel, then I'd have a problem. Eventually this tip would get thinner and weaker, and the bevel would creep up into here. So all I do to counter that is to raise my elbow a little bit, rotate my wrists a little bit towards me on this side of the knife, and it raises the angle on the tip. I'm just raising it a couple degrees above my sharpening angle. Okay, so here we go. I'm using trailing stroke, so I'm applying pressure as I push the knife away from me and releasing pressure. Significant pressure, no pressure. Well, this is pressure, no pressure. Pressure, no pressure. My goal is to raise a burr, which will form on the opposite side of the knife. The sharpening is taking place directly below my fingers, where I'm applying a heavy amount of pressure. I'm using 4 levels of pressure to sharpen this knife. Heavy, then right down to very light. Heavy on the coarse stone only, to raise a burr. This is burr forming pressure. I checked my work. Even before I started sharpening, I checked to make sure the knife was fine. There's no damages to it, anything like that. There's nothing bent. So I'm now going to check for a burr. I can feel a burr from the tip area all the way down to the heel. So that's my signal to flip sides. So when I flip the side, I have a pattern when I sharpen. I always start on the right side of the knife and I hold the knife like this. When I flip the side and go to the left side of the knife, I start the heel of the knife on the top of the stone, and my thumb is now stabilizing the knife for me. So I'm going to find my angle, my 10-degree angle, or my sharpening angle, and I'm happy with that. And I'm going to drag this knife down towards me using pressure as I do so. Now remember, folks, you could keep painting this edge and bevel with Sharpie as you go along as many times as you want. Okay, so pressure, no pressure, pressure, no pressure. Elbow up, angle up at the tip. I'm making sure that tip area is in constant contact with that stone. I'm using burr forming pressure here. A little bit of water. This is just water I'm using. So now I keep doing that until I can feel a burr on this side of the stone. I feel it all the way up except right here. So I don't have a burr there, so I have to go back to this area. I'm applying pressure with these 3 fingers. So I feel a burr all the way along the edge. Now it's my signal to start removing the burr. You form a burr once on both sides of the knife, evenly as possible, tip to heel, and then after that, it's all about burr removal. You never want to form the burr again on this particular knife. Subsequent burrs may form, but it's all about burr removal and cleaning the burr. So I do that by ever diminishing levels of pressure. That's the way I do it. So that was burr forming pressure. I'm going to repeat the process now. Down here, the bottom of the stone, elbow up, tip angle raised, and I'm going to reduce my pressure by 50%. Just a very moderate light of pressure knife. I don't want to form burrs again. Okay, that was pressure number 2. Now I'm going to go down to pressure 3, which is even lighter. Sorry, that was pressure 3. This is pressure 2. Lightest amount of pressure I can manage here. Okay, the final stage of pressure is just a stropping motion, where I'm going to put my fingers here and I'm just going to go like this at the same angle, your sharpening angle. I'm going to do that 3 times per side. If I was holding any of this knife any lighter, it would drop out of my hand. Feather light pressure. So now what I do, since I think I'm finished on my coarse stone, I'm going to hold this knife under a very good source of light, and I'm going to look for any reflections in the edge, along the edge. If there's any reflections, it's an indication that you haven't quite finished, that the metal hasn't been removed. So if you do see any reflections from here, down here, anywhere, you go back on the stone with some light pressure until they move. Okay. Your job is to make sure there's no light at the end of this, at the end of your stones. So I think the knife feels nice and sharp here. We can test it with some paper. My goal is to make sure that knife is sharp before I move to other stones. So just using telephone book paper, holding like that, you can just see that coarse stone got the knife nice and sharp. So now I can move to a different stone. I'm going to move to a medium stone, and my pressure is going to never be heavy again. I've done the coarse stone work. I've got the burr removal pressure out of the way. Now I can decrease my level pressure. So I'm going to start at a moderate pressure here. This is a beautiful 2000 grit stone that I'm using. So I'm going to, the same process, same angle. I'm repeating the pattern that I've always used. Okay. Very moderate pressure, no pressure. And I'm going to try to use the entire surface area of this stone. You'll notice that my arm, as I sharpen, is at a 45-degree angle from my elbow. John, I like the term he uses, this is my angle of approach. So you've got a sharpening angle and your angle of approach, which is a beautiful 45-degree, very comfortable. You can hold that for an eternity, this angle. So again, every time I do this, from tip to heel, heel to tip, I've decreased the level of pressure by 50% at least. Now this is a very, very light amount of pressure here. Very light. I'm just refining the edge at this point. Cleaning it. And then I'm going to just use these stropping motions. So, I'm happy with the work on the medium grit stone. You can continue with this process if you want until the knife is becoming very, very sharp. So as long as you're using very light pressure, it's fine. So I'm going to switch to my finishing stone, which is this case is about 4,000 grit. So again, the same process, same pattern, just a different stone. And I'm working as hard as I can to maintain that 10-degree angle. So if I have a guide, I could use it here to make sure I'm on target, but I pretty well know where that 10-degree looks like. So again, there's hardly any pressure here. Pretty light. Lighter still. And finally, my stropping strokes. Feather light pressure. at the same angle or a little higher. You never want to go lower when you're stropping. Work at your own pace. The final stage, here I'm done with those, could be a stropping. I'll show you how I strop a knife. Just using these beautiful leather strop. So I used to use bare leather. Stropping is a optional thing, but I see it as a final cleansing of the stone. I do not rely on my strop to make my knife sharp. I just rely on them. I just use them because it's a nice traditional feeling for me. I like the leather, but I'm going to use it at the exact same angle as I can imagine, as I can possibly do, in a very slow, focused movement. So that's it. So we can test the knife again. See how it goes. Test the tip area, the heel area. Make sure it goes to the knife perfectly. So I'm pretty happy with this edge at the moment. You can see, yes, I've been doing this a long time, but this is something you can do, folks. You just have to stop watching the videos. You know, even John Reuter's fantastic videos, at some point stop, just get to it. Manage your expectations, develop your technique, build your muscle memory, and have fun. It's a lot of fun to sharpening knives. It's a very rewarding experience, and you can do it. Okay, thank you very much for watching.